All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us live. Hopefully, you all can hear and see us all right. I'm RJ, and I have my co-founder here, C3. We're the actuator finance team, and we deployed our protocol last night, and this stream is meant to kind of just highlight the farming that's about to begin in the next 10, 15 minutes here. Before we talk about the farming, we just want to give you a quick high-level overview of our protocol. So C3, you want to say a little bit about Actuator first?
Yeah, so thanks everybody again for being with us. We're really excited that here last night about this time, the launch went off. The mainnet is running and folks have been working with the different elements of it. And now we've got that farming about to start. So what is Actuator protocol and its token? I'm going to try a new way of describing it right now. It's really an innovation that brings together two market participants around this idea of hex time tokens. Hex time tokens are discounted hex. They pair off one for one HTT of a given redemption day will guarantee by protocol the issuance of one hex on a redemption day, which could be anywhere out the curve. Now, the two actors, which is an important thing to see, because if you only got a one-sided market, there's not a lot of stability there. We have a two-sided market, and both sides have actors that are incentivized to participate in a bold and dynamic market. One side are the people who want to be able to have liquidity out of hex stakes, specifically HTTs. It doesn't apply to native stakes. It applies to HSIs that are created much like an extension of the HSI from the Hedron protocol. It's the same code. We put a wrapper, provided functionality on it. And so your HSI tokenized stake can create these things, mint these things called hex times tokens, HTTs, so you can extract value out of it. That's a really novel thing. The ability to get some liquidity out of a hex stake so that you have some alternatives to doing the irreparable damage, the irreversible damage of an end stake. You don't want to have to do that in early end stake. So here you can do something that issues these HTTs. They're sellable in the liquid market, and you can purchase them later and restore it if you want. So you have an ability to generate liquidity. Those are the motivated sellers of HTTs. Well, who's the other side of that market? Because those actors are just as important as the ones who are motivated sellers. You need to know who the motivated buyers are. Well, the motivated buyers would be speculators who just really want to accumulate tokens that are discounted against native hex. In essence, you've got another liquid form of generating a true fixed and known hex return in native hex terms. So said another way, you might be able to buy a token at 0.5 hex, knowing that the protocol will issue one full hex against that on its redemption day. So that's a doubling of a return in hex terms between purchase date and whatever that associated redemption day is. So I like to describe it that way for tonight's purpose, is these hex time tokens, which are guaranteed one for one protocol backed issuance of hex at a redemption day, has brought together two new markets. One who want to create those tokens and sell them to generate liquidity for themselves from their HSIs. The other that are motivated to buy them because they represent discounted hex and a genuine native return. And those two now will be able to interact at markets at all these different redemption days across the full 15-year curve. And we've got three starting points. We have an HTT 3000, 5000, and 7000 that are fully functioning and are liquid right now, with participants on both sides of that market establishing a discount rate. And that's happening as we speak. And shortly, the liquidity providers of those pools will be able to participate in the farming and generate actuator token and receive that as the emissions of actuator token, which is the revenue sharing component of the system. So I'll pause there now and pass it back to you, RJ, for anything I may have missed.
No, that's a good summary. So my co-founder C3, he's very good at kind of the high level, picture, the macro, and the confluence of all these actors. My background's more on the software side, and so I can just give you a quick description of the protocol, kind of from the mechanics of how it interacts with hex stakes. But firstly, I just wanted to flash on the screen here our website. You can, if you want to play along with the DApp while you're listening to us, you can go to actuator.finance, and then from there you can hit launch app, which will take you to our DApp. And then and we'll show shortly here how to navigate the DApp. But just a few words on hex stakes. So as my co-founder said, the system at its core is designed to facilitate the minting and the redemption of these hex time tokens. And to put a visual on it, every hex stake has an intrinsic hex value, the principal plus the rewards accrued to date. And so that's what this visual here is indicating. And as your stake progresses, you increase in underlying rewards. Well, our protocol is able to identify what this value is, this intrinsic hex value of your stake, and then you're able to perform what's called an extraction of your HTTs, your hex time tokens. So I have a button here to simulate that. So notice that my chart just turned gray because what that represents is that your hex principal and your hex rewards within your stake are now collateralized. And that's because the hex time tokens, the underlying collateral is this hex. But notably, as your stake progresses, notice the green bar, you accrue additional hex that's not collateralized, and that portion is yours, unless you choose to also extract that amount, which means you also create new hex time tokens. And so the hex time tokens, they're backed 1-to-1 by that underlying hex in the stake, and eventually at end stake, you're able to redeem those hex time tokens for hex. So that's how it interacts with the hex contract. And then there's all sorts of interesting downstream implications of this. I think the protocol we designed it's not meant to be necessarily doing distinct formulas or mechanics from the hex protocol. It's meant to represent what's happening in hex accurately. And that's why you're only able to mint hex time tokens in the amount equal to the intrinsic value of your stake and no more. And furthermore, the hex time tokens, they're backed by the stake and not any external token. And so we're about to talk about this actuator token. So where does the actuator token come into all this? Well, for starters, you don't actually need to think about the actuator token at all if you want to participate in this system of hex time tokens and extracting liquidity from your stake. However, the actuator token is a way for users in the Pulse chain community to share in the revenue generated by the actuator protocol. And so every time a user mints hex time token, there's a 1% fee that'll be applied to that minting event. And that fee will flow to actuator token holders. And so what this means is that actuator is effectively earning hex, because if you're earning hex time tokens, by extension, you're able to redeem those hex time tokens for hex. Therefore, we see actuator as being a tightly coupled asset to hex, because it generates income in hex. And so the actual mechanics of the actuator token. So there's 1 billion actuator tokens. It's long term, it's going to be deflationary. And as I mentioned, that fee is going to be applied to minting of HTTs, and that's going to flow to actuator token holders. However, in order for actuator token holders to collect that fee, you do have to vault your contract in that hex time token contract. So this is actually a powerful way for you as the actuator token holder to decide, what hex time tokens do I want to earn? Do I want to earn hex time tokens HTT 3000 or HTT 7000? So depending on your time horizon, you can kind of sculpt your income, or maybe you want a variety of income across a variety of hex time tokens. You have control over that as the actuator token holder to decide which hex time token contract you vault in, and therefore what hex time token you get to earn. So my example here, if you want to collect hex time token 5,000, you'd take your actuator and you'd deposit it in the HTT 5,000 contract. And the fees are pro rata based on your the size of your share in the vault. There is, however, a 90-day lockup period on your actuator tokens when you deposit. This is just to avoid exploitive MEV opportunities. So it's not meant to be an overly onerous minimum deposit date, but enough to show that you're a somewhat long-term believer. So the token, here's the distribution of the token, and I'm actually going to switch over to our DApp now as we approach midnight. So as I said, you can go to actuator.finance and you can enter the DApp here. And if you go to the Earn tab and then you go to Farms, this is where you'll see the farmable pools for actuator. And so right now, if you want to farm the actuator token, you would need to hold one of the following. You need to be depositing liquidity in one of the three pools. So HTT 3000 paired with Hex, 5000 paired with Hex, or HTT 7000 paired with Hex. So those are three different PulseX pools, and each has three different Hex time tokens across three different maturity dates. And users who deposit into these farms, they're going to start earning actuator in 2 minutes here. So as you can see, this is our team deposits that we've placed into these farms, and we'll in 2 minutes here we'll be able to refresh the page and you'll be able to see actuator rewards accruing in this my pending rewards column. And these farms are going to distribute the actuator token on this schedule below. So that green bar, this represents the farm distribution of the actuator token over time. So you can see it represents by far the majority of how actuator will be distributed. And then after 3 years, the supply is capped. But 75% of all actuator tokens will go to these farms. And then the farms don't all earn at the same rate. So as you can see, the different farms have a different, participate in different amounts of actuator rewards. And so the longer the time to redemption on the Hex time token, the larger the share of the actuator rewards. And this is basically a reflection of Hex, basically the idea that longer should pay better. And in order to acquire Hex time token 7,000, you'd have to create a Hex stake, presumably that ends around day 7,000, and from there you'd have the Hex time, you'd have the tokens you'd need to start farming. So we're about to hit midnight here, and I'll pause there if my co-founder here had anything to add before we demonstrate the farm.
Maybe just to let everybody recognize, because there are a lot of there's some straightforward elements to this, and there are some that get a little more sophisticated and are going to enable some pretty robust strategies as this develops, like curve trading and roll down and things that in TradFi we're familiar with in the bond market. But we're going to have that ability to do it here as this market begins to mature. And the reason for that is because we've got good liquidity in, at the moment, it's going to be these three particular pools, but over time, the community can create more and more of these pools at different points and places, and we will. And so there'll be a whole curve full of liquid assets like this, where an HTT holder can sell into one of these pools and get Hex back. Of course, he's going to have to do it at a discount, which is what the other side of the market wants. So it's going to be a really interesting thing to see where the community takes this and what new innovations can build on top of it.
Yeah. So since the time that C3 started talking, we passed midnight, And you can see in my pending rewards column for the farms, I have some actuator that is ready to be collected. So I can, if you look in my tokens page, you'll see that I currently have 0 actuator at the moment at this address. But if I go back to the farms, you can see my pending rewards. So I'm going to go ahead and collect my pending rewards. And I've got a hardware wallet I have to log into here in order to
Hardware
sign the
wallets are good.
transaction.
Everybody should have one of those. If you don't know what those
Yes.
are, spend some time and find someone who does know and invest in one.
Later in the stream, I was planning on using a software wallet, but it has very few funds in it, so hopefully that's not too
You're wise to
disappointing.
not use a software wallet to hold any more than you would carry in a regular wallet, because you might
Right.
lose this. You might lose your software wallet.
Good reminder. So I just submitted that transaction to collect my actuator rewards, and you can see at the bottom of my screen that I have the transaction just succeeded and my rewards dropped to 0. And then if I go back to my tokens page, you can see my actuator token balance just increased to 246. You might be wondering, hey, that just a second ago we saw 144 actuator, but then I got minted 244 actuator. What's the discrepancy there? Well, the farms are designed to accrue and distribute actuator rewards every single second. So every single second that passes, this balance is going to increase. It's not increasing at the moment, but if I refresh my page, you'll see the increase in balance. And then, so in theory, you could extract you could collect your actuator rewards every second. And so looks like the farms are working as intended, and you can see that these farms towards the bottom here are earning the most actuator because they have the largest share in the actuator rewards. So
have a longer pays better idea.
Pretty much, yeah. And you can see the APR here, which disclaimer, is going to fluctuate wildly, but at the moment, this farm is yielding the best return. All right, so what I wanted to walk through right now really quickly is just the process from start to finish. If you just entered actuator finance and you don't have any of the assets you need yet, how would you start farming actuator? So I'm going to walk you through the process from start to finish, and the process starts in the staking page. So let's see, I'm going to stop sharing for a second here. I'm going to switch my wallet. Like I said, I'm switching to a software wallet. Sorry, C3.
It's okay. They all have their purpose, as long as we know we could lose it.
All right, so share my screen again. So we're back here. I've changed my wallet, and right now in my wallet, I have some hex. And this is what you're going to need to start with. All you need is hex if you want to eventually be farming actuator. So if you have some hex, start by going to stakes. And then from there, you could see in this view here, there's these actuator delegated stakes. These are the stakes that are wrapped by actuator, which we're going to create right now. So go to new delegated stake. And then, like I said, I have 100 hex, but I'm not going to use all of it. I'm going to use at least 50 hex right now. And then I will set my allowance because I need to allow I need to allow the actuator contract to transfer my hex around. So while it's loading, you're creating a normal hex stake. You're going to interact with the hex contract ultimately under the hood, but you're doing it through the proxy of the actuator contract. And the actuator contract is going to be the one to wrap it with that additional functionality. So I've chosen my principal hex amount for my new stake, and then I'm faced with the choice of which end stake day to choose. I'll go with 5,000, and I can then submit that, sign my transaction. I don't think you could see my wallet, my Rabby wallet, but know that I just signed a transaction, and you can see at the bottom the the transaction is pending, and then once the transaction is confirmed on chain, we'll get a successful notification at the bottom. So there it is, and then there the stake just showed up. So from here, I now have my hex stake sufficiently created, and notice that you have this column called available to extract. This represents the amount of hex time tokens you're able to extract, which again, remember, it's hex time tokens are backed 1-to-1 by hex. And so the reason you're able to extract 50 hex time tokens is because you had a principal of 50 hex. If you had some additional accrued rewards, like say a few weeks from now, this number would be higher to include those rewards as well. But for now, it's just our principal backing that is able to be collateralized. So from here, we're able to extract or mint these hex time tokens. So you go to actions and then extract hex time tokens, and all the defaults are what I want already. And in my wallet, I just sign the transaction and it's pending. But again, so this is going to interact with our actuator protocol, and it's going to mint these tokens, and then it's going to designate this portion of my stake as collateral, because whoever owns these hex time tokens effectively owns this hex collateral. So notice the transaction just succeeded. I extracted the full amount. I now have 50 HGT 5000 tokens. And so we can now move on to the next step, which is adding liquidity to the pools. So remember, in order to farm, you need these liquidity tokens, these LP tokens. And so in order to acquire LP tokens, you first have to deposit liquidity into one of these pools, specifically one of these 3 pools at the top, as these are the farmable pools, as we saw back on this page. So I own HTT 5000, and I mentioned I already have some hex. So if you go to the pools page, and if you go to this pool here, and then you can go to add liquidity, and I have the 50 HTT 5000 I just minted. So I'm just going to mint that amount, or I'm going to select that amount, and then notice it automatically selects the corresponding hex amount to satisfy the existing ratio in the pool. If I try and submit, it's going to yell at me for not setting the allowance. So I have to set my allowance here briefly. So again, this is just going to allow PulseX to transfer our tokens. It's just an extra security measure around the ERC20 contract. So then I have to set the allowance for both tokens. So I'll sign that transaction as well. All right, so that's loading. Once that loads, I'll be able to finally be able to add my 2 tokens to the liquidity pool. And from there, you'll receive these LP tokens, and we'll be able to see what these LP tokens. You'll be able to see them in your tokens page in the dApp. All right, so finally I can add liquidity, sign, and confirm that. So this is the pool I'm adding to, and there's already a good amount of hex and HTT 5000 in this pool, so I'm not really going to make a dent in the TVL. But so yeah, it doesn't even register. It's a very small amount, but they're LP tokens nonetheless. And if you go to the tokens page, you'll be able to see. Yeah, it looks like I need to fix my rounding, or we need to fix our rounding here because it's not registering at the moment. But here, you could see the exact amount of HTT. You can see the exact amount of PLP tokens that you have. So one more step in order to start farming. So now I head to the farms page. We could take those LP tokens and we could deposit them into this farm. So if we go to deposit, and then again, set the allowance. Once the allowance is set, I'll be able to take those LP tokens. What that's going to do is it's going to deposit them into what's called the Master Chef contract, which is essentially just the smart contract that distributes actuator tokens on the schedule defined. So we're ready to finally make the deposit. All right, so that transaction's been submitted and it's awaiting approval. Once that approves, I'll see my share in this farm increase. And again, as soon as it's deposited, you'll be able to start observing your actuator rewards starting to accrue in real time. Let's go back here, see if that picked up the latest transaction. So notice my share is now, I now have a share in the pool. And also notice that I'm already starting to earn actuator tokens. So again, I can, as we already mentioned before, I can now collect my actuator rewards, and every second they're going to accrue more and more. So you notice right now I have no actuator tokens, but once this transaction I just submitted finally gets approved, the actuator tokens will show up here, and you'll also be able to see them in your wallet if you add the actuator token to your to whatever wallet you're using. So there we go. So 0.007 actuator. And yeah, so that's the process from start to finish. You have an alternative option, which would be probably a little bit quicker, is to just, so I created the HTT 5000 tokens originally. You could also buy them on PulseX. You could buy these tokens on PulseX, and then you'll be able to add your hex time tokens and hex into the pools, and then start farming that way
Let's
as well.
pause on that one for a minute there, RJ. That's an important thing. For some people, this farming is second nature. You've done it just like you have at a lot of other projects. Farming is nothing new here. It's just a mission mechanism. But if you're new and you're not familiar with all this farming or even HSIs and staking, this may seem like a lot of complexity, and that's understandable. But don't miss the fact that you could then still be the other side of this market. You could just come in with some hex and go buy some HTTs, and you're buying discounted hex, and you've got a portfolio of different things you could choose from. You could buy some HTT 3000s, some 5000s, and some 7000s, and all those would be accruing, that is earning yield, progressing towards a 1-for-1. You'll buy more than one HTT with a hex because you're buying it at a discount, and then it becomes 1-for-1, and that becomes your earnings. So you can just come to this site and bring hex with it and just do a swap online straight into any of these HTTs and hold them and wait for them to continue to progress up a curve towards from a discount number to 1. That's
Right.
just a simple strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of information packed in the price of different HTTs. So if you go to the dashboards, you could see, as we mentioned, HTTs are backed 1-to-1 and redeemable 1-for-1 for hex, but they're going to trade less than the value of hex. So this discount to hex shows, how much cheaper are the HTTs relative to hex. And I can tell you already, there's probably an interesting market opportunity right now where the cheapest hex time token available at a 73% discount is also the hex time token that's going to earn you the most actuator. So if you go to the farms, we mentioned that this pool is going to result in the largest actuator share, and this is observable, based on the APR as well. So there's an opportunity already to kind of identify based on what HTTs are trading at, and based on what the farms are yielding. You can there's some opportunities here to play with.
And the market will learn how to do this. This is an innovation, and it's going to bring about different skills that people learn. But as they do, they're going to find very good financial strategies to carry out through this mechanism.
Yeah, right. So I guess kind of as a closing step, as we mentioned, the actuator token, its purpose is ultimately to share in the revenue. We're not just here to collect it and do nothing with it. So now that I have actuator tokens, as I mentioned, or as we saw here, I can then, as we mentioned, vault those actuator tokens. So I could take the actuator tokens and I could deposit them into one of the hex time token contracts, which will then allow me to earn all hex time tokens minted within that contract. So as you can see, somebody already beat us to it. Somebody deposited a little bit of actuator in this pool. I'll go ahead and do it in the 7,000 HTT 7,000 contract. So I will take these are my actuator tokens, and I will deposit them into the hex time token contract. Notice that you're given a warning about that 90-day minimum lockup period, which we talked about. And that 90-day period, once the 90-day ends, you're able to withdraw without penalty indefinitely. So it's just a short lockup period. And yeah, having done that, so my actuator tokens now got moved into the contract here, and so you can see my deposit. And every time somebody mints HTT 7,000, you're going to get a portion of that rewards. So see if I refresh my page here. So in this case, we actually own 100% of this vault at the moment. So if somebody mints a million HTT 7,000 right now, we are going to get, what is that? 10,000 HTT 7,000. That's 1% of a million because we own 100% of their share at the moment. So, but anyone obviously is free to jump in here and deposit their actuator tokens into the contract into the hex time token contract of their choosing, and start earning HTTs with your actuator. So that's kind of a bookend to the actuator. That's its ultimate purpose, is to, like we said, kind of share in the revenue generated by the HTT mint fee. Let's see. I don't know, Bill, is there any other final topics we want to cover before we close down the stream?
That's good. It was a good summary, I think, on the front end for those that are new to this. We watched the farms go live and the actuator rewards begin to accrue, and that was a great summary and walkthrough of how the UI works. So our encouragement would be, if you haven't done so already, that you go to actuator.finance. You'll see the documentations page there. Maybe you show that up real quickly there, RJ, so that they can see that the details are here in the docs. There's also an FAQ page. You can take your time to make sure you understand the things you're wanting to do. We even have an Eli 5 section there for the explain it like I'm 5. A lot of good details, and also some summary YouTube videos on how-tos, so you can go back through the stuff that RJ just discussed. So all of those things are laid out here, and we hope you'll take a look at this. And it's something new for the Hex community. As a early Hexican myself, I'm very excited about what this can do to promote staking within the community. And we think that will do well. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, that's a good summary. So again, we're at actuator.finance. And yeah, you should join us on Telegram. You could find that here as well, where we're actively answering questions and getting community feedback, and we're updating the DApp to kind of build in more tools for you guys to understand this new market that's opening up on hex time tokens. So yeah, with that, I guess we'll close it down. Looks like the contract is distributing actuator rewards. So yeah, go ahead and start participating in those rewards.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
See you guys.